you can walk.
I just bowed.
Cool.
Okay, good.
You can never bow too much. We try. I'm just waiting for Lindsay. You good? Okay. So,
do you need to mic stand? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, your microphone's right there.
Oh, thank you. And is it up and going?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Rachel, 2 points for Gryffindor. Am I good?
Yeah, seriously, nice.
Let's go. I like this one.
No, these are pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can open. We need to get that fan down here. You can do whatever you want. Open the door. Sure. You have the back door open. Is that whole huge window in the back open?
Yeah, I got it.
The whole huge window in the back's open? Yeah, we don't have air circulation. I know they're soaked in sweat at the party. Okay. Let's start with yet another bow. So take a good posture, connect with the ground. Good old ground. Connect with the sky above. Connect with your heart and your breath. Give it away. So I'm honored, we're honored yet again to have another great happy warrior, cheerful warrior, who's going to teach us something about how to be a business from a dharma or a mindful or a truth point of view. Dan can talk more about his extensive knowledge or study in Chinese something or other stuff, well said. And I supplicated him to speak with us because he, like Frank and like David Sanford, who are the other two, is really curious and always interested in fun with new people who aren't in the Dharma club, you know? And I go back, way back with him. He's tried to meditate, instruction, me, or whatever.
No luck.
Not much luck. And so thank you so much, Dan.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, if you want to take notes, go for it on your phone or on your notebook. And Emily might be on our the computer a little bit for work. But other than that, we're all here.
Good.
Except for Renee.
Okay, let's try that bow again. And let's do a bow as an organization. So that means that you're going to sit and feel like a person. Here, you're a person, I'm a person. And feel that sense of personhood. Is there another person?
No, I just want Mary to be able to enjoy it.
Okay. That sense of personhood starts up here, and now let it come down into here. Sense of simplicity. Let yourself feel a little bit about how lovely it is to be a person. Just a little bit of sadness. Big breath out. Next time we do a big breath out, feel like you're breathing with the people you work with and care about. So now from your heart, you can sort of have heart peripheral vision, you could say. And very gently look around so you can remind yourself of who you're breathing with. Such a live, it's like a pond, isn't it? This nowness, we're like a pond, right? That we're sharing this nowness, we're each experiencing it from a place. Let's breathe together. So natural hierarchy is when we offer on 3 levels. We offer from our head, shoulders, and torso. And what we do when we bow is we're acknowledging the ecology of relationship that we're already part of. Let's breathe again, and then bow. And because you care about this pond, and you respect its natural reflective wakefulness with the dragonflies and the little birds, and there's frogs and there's fish. There's an eagle way up above reflected in the pond. You offer first the head, and then the shoulders, and then wake. No, we look around yourself. Feel these are the people you spend your days with. And all of the textures and tones of relationship that happen in your day are part of this ecology. It's happening all the time. That this ecology of nowness and relationship is equally present when things seem to be going really smoothly, and when things are going through transformations or difficulty, or when you're actually pissed off at someone who has been irritated with someone else in this room for the last 2 days. Yeah, exactly. So the rest of you have been pretty much asleep. So how many elephantines are there in total?
20?
20, and we have 2, 4, 6, 8.
How many have sorted this week?
14, 15.
14? 13 at some dinner.
Yeah, 15 is around.
15.
Good. So we have a quorum, right? And each person comes from a different place in their life, and this can be a way station or somewhere where you're for a long time. But in this pool of present awareness, we all have a active part, both in the part that we can map conceptually, but more important, actually, in the part that happens preconceptually, in the part where we feel into our relationship in any situation. So when we talk about hierarchy, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about today, there's 2 kinds of hierarchy. There's a functional hierarchy, which I call a contraption, which is roles, relationships, reporting, roles, responsibilities, reporting relationships, command and, we'll wait till.
Yeah. Since she's the leader of one of these hierarchies, I wanted to.
No worries. So you have a conventional mechanistic hierarchy. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. We need that to have an organization. But what we're going to be curious about is something called natural hierarchy and distributive empowerment. And it has to do with how you find dignity in a complex organization, how you actually develop group dignity, group synergy, group mind that can't be engineered with just an org chart. But let's start with the org chart and that kind of putting together of an organization based on hierarchy. Who has been in the nice, good, dysfunctional hierarchy? What was it like?
Chaotic.
Tell me why.
Because everything was always changing and you couldn't depend on anything.
Right, so not enough structure there, right? Anyone been in a hierarchy that was too prescriptive, too top down? What was that like?
It also always changed, so I had to follow the rules because I didn't know what to do because the rules kept changing, but there are always new rules. They just kept throwing out different ideas. And
That's right, and did you feel heard?
not really.
Yeah, not really, exactly. And did you feel heard in that chaos?
No. I got lost in the shuffle.
Got lost in the shuffle. So mechanistic hierarchies, either too flat, in other words, not enough structure, so that the elbow doesn't know if it's a knee or not, You never know what your job is. You never know how things work. You're making it up as you go. Quite exhausting. Can feel creative, but nonetheless, you know, there's this quality of living in chaos that will not regulate itself. And then you can have a highly regulated hierarchy where it's very clear, you know, who's the boss and who says yes and no, and everyone's just trying to do what they want to be done. And, you know, no one's really interested in what it's like to be in your node in the organization. And those things, by the way, those kinds of organizations can be highly effective for a while. That if you just want to make a lot of money, or if you just want to have some efficient thing, imposing that kind of rigidity, if you've got a smart person running the show, really effective. But you get this mechanistic erector set kind of organization that's only good for the environment it was designed for. And also, people feel suppressed in both of those kinds of organizations, that they feel unresonant with the pool they're in. And so they're working for a paycheck, they're working because they have to, there's lots of sticks and carrots presented. That, you know, if you don't do it my way, you're fired, and if you do it my way, you get bonuses, and we really don't want you to feel, we don't care how it feels to do what you're doing, we don't care if it's got integrity, we don't care if it fits who you are and where you want to go, and if you have ideas about how the organization is working as a whole, we so don't give a shit. I mean, it's really hard to express in short sentences how little we care about your overall intelligence unless it's going to lead to this goal. So that's a very goal-oriented organization. So we've all been in various forms of that, and a lot of times what happens in an organization like that is that you get little sub-cliques of people who develop healthy relationships with each other to survive. So, you know, you have a top-down organization, and then people protect themselves from that by banding together. They treat each other well, they listen to each other, and they survive. But as long as, when you are curious about how to have an organization as a whole that acts like an ecology, where there's genuine sense of real structure, so it's not just thrown together in a flat hierarchy, but at the same time it's a living, breathing organism as opposed to a contraction, we have to think a little deeper about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And what do you think might be the key tool that helps more than anything else?
Communication.
Well said, but there's a specific part of communication that's the most important.
Active.
No?
Oh.
Oh, that's a good thing. Listening.
Mm.
Knew you would get that one.
I see.
I don't know.
So listening is a very interesting function that changes the nature of the communication. So there's denotative communication and there's connotative communication, you could say. There's head communication and heart communication, and there's head listening and heart listening. So you can receive a message about, what did you just get a message from when you want to come up?
Our editor is not here.
Yeah, exactly. It's information, right? But when you said our editor who's not here, you had a little flutter in your voice, and you, right? There was a whole communication of some sort of awkwardness about that you felt, right? That was, everyone in the room felt like, oh, that was awkward. There's a ripple that went through the whole situation, right? So I can hear, oh, the editor's not here. Should we wait? Should we not wait? You know, binary decision, and it will have certain. Let's do a pluses and minus chart about the advantages and disadvantages of each, and we'll come to a good conclusion based on discussions.
Could we have a meeting about it?
Could we have a meeting about it, right?
Form a committee.
But what's really interesting in creating a genuine organization is that flutter and appreciating the genuineness of that and the sense of, you know, I'm imposing my ideas of what I, you know, a quality of modesty and gentleness and resonance with the tone of what we're doing, and that might have been an intrusion, right? So that's a really powerful communication about who she is and how she fits into the organization and what she has to offer. She didn't say, oh, it was a person, like this. It was gentle. It had this ripple go out. And that ripple makes us ripple, right? That ripple makes us ripple. So that's equally true with something sharp, or especially something unfeeling, as it makes us go like this. So how we hear informs how we know globally. When we hear from here, we understand local events as global signifiers, right? That it's informing us about the health of the ecology and the depth of the person. So you're going deep into who the person is, and you're going deep into the environment of awake that the person's communicating into. When you hear from your head up, you tend to hear information which is equally important. In other words, we're not making a choice between them, but we're seeing yes and. Yes and. Because what we're interested in doing is both having a natural hierarchy where people have roles and responsibilities, supporting relationships. It's a structured organization, so it works gracefully. And a model for that, by the way, is the human body. That you could have your eyes on your kneecaps, and you could still see, but it's better they're way at the top, because you can see more, right? You could have your heart in your nostril, but it would be a little funny, right? But in the center of your chest distributes the energy the best. And you could walk on your hands, but when you walk on your feet, there's a natural sense of balance. You're put together that way. So one of the most difficult things about hierarchy is that in our culture, it's associated with success, superiority, control, and usually some kind of suppression or manipulation. And so one reaction to that is, let's just get rid of hierarchy. And there's some of that getting rid of hierarchy that's actually really healthy, because we have an inherited burden of models that don't allow breathing organism. So you relax the hierarchy so that you can start to, why are you doing that? Not because hierarchy is bad, because it's entrapped us. We relax that hierarchy so we can learn to breathe with each other. We can notice that everybody's breathing in the organization. But without the hierarchy, you can't walk, your heart doesn't beat, your eyes don't see, everything's connected together awkwardly. What do you think?
I'm interested.
Tell me more.
Well, I'm thinking about how, like when you're talking about the ripple effect, so like if we were all walking in a line and one of us was kind of like, if you're like elephant trunks or like a train, and like one of us is behind and like kind of pushing the other in like either a gentle way, and so then that's like rippling all the way toward the front of the line, and so like we're walking in like sort of like a sweet mellow way, or someone's like jabbing you in the back, and then suddenly we're doing like this kind of thing, sort of like a gentle ripple forward.
So let's do an exercise based on what she just came up with. Conga line. We're gonna do two things. We're gonna do a conga line, bum 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 bum, right? And we're gonna communicate front and back by tapping the back. We'll go around in a big circle like this, and then we're gonna come back into a circle and feel what communicating crosswise feels like. So it's a felt sense. Is it okay with the? Yeah, all right. Okay, are you ready, conga dancers? All right, here we go. I'm all set. So we'll just go around. You have to go through. Yeah, we have to go through the window. Through the window and back around, and a couple of times. Ready? Bum 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 bum. What do we do? Well, we're trying to communicate through the organization in a loud way. Yeah, we have to touch.
Yeah, but somebody has to
Bum, bum,
somebody has to lead, right?
So now we're in a circle. We're liking it because we can feel the whole circle. And now I'm going to peel off this one. And
Okay, for the one.
I am the leader. You are the followers. Where are the followers? I can't see them. I hope they're following me. Get some communication. I can't tell if anyone's following me. I only feel Waylon's hands. Here's the view at the back.
Communicate something today all the way through. How like as your cat. And then drop to the same thing.
Now we're seeing each other, right? Now we're seeing each other. She's gonna wonder what the hell. Now we feel each other. Look how different it is. He's good. Okay, now we sit down. So, you know, we have that sense in an organization together more or less in mind.
Sorry. We were making fun of me.
From the front. So we have the conga line kind of organization where we're basically isolated with each other, that we have communication with the people in front and back of us, but it's very hard for us to have a sense of what's happening in the home.
Any water?
Welcome, by the way. You really missed a lot of really cool stuff. What's it? You missed the conga line almost.
No, it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So in that isolative organization, you know, you're only getting communication through, you're not getting it in the 3D way, you're getting it in the 1D way. However, the person in front really gets to lead. It's highly directed. I take you through the window, you follow through the window, right? So we have that more isolative situation that actually the person at the head, and I might have had some lieutenants behind, and you know, you can structure it in a more sophisticated way. But the idea is that there's real sense of guidance, but there's also a sense of isolation that happens naturally in that kind of configuration. And that's the, you know, very strict lines of communication. And I work in a mortgage company, and I realize that people in central office typically, they just have no feel for where the actual work gets done. And it's not that they have bad intentions, they're just blind man's buff. You know, it must be like this kind of thing. And then the other iteration of that is a listening-based, play-based field of communication, which is this lake we're talking about, that we're experiencing when we're in a circle. And what empowers that is not what you say, but how you hear. That you're always communicating choicelessly, which is interesting. You cannot come into work having, you know, with a hangover or having had a horrible, you know, argument with your other person and not be radiating that out. Cannot be done. You can put on a straight face and I'm going to command and control myself, and everyone's going, whoa, that must have hurt. I don't know what it was, but it must have hurt real bad. So that communication is always available on us, and it's very exposing. So it takes some bravery to share that, because what we discover is that there's this tremendous well of question we have about ourselves, of a sense of sadness about what's happening in our world, sense of unsureness about how we fit in and what kind of capabilities we have. And most of all, a sense of whether we're worthy people. This is the heart of the whole damn thing. Whether we're fundamentally worthy. So you get super achievers. I have a friend who was a super achiever growing up. You know, she was sort of like world-class basketball and went to Yale and got straight A's and, you know, top of SAT, you know, and she actually collapsed as a 35-year-old because that drive to prove that you're okay in that way is terrible for you on the inside. It's absolutely unhealthy for your super achievers. And also, it numbs your moral sense, your sense of virtue, because you're setting yourself goals to be okay. And then there's another kind of reaction to that challenge that we all face, where we collapse in on ourselves and we don't trust ourselves to extend ourselves or actually discover who we are, because we don't feel that, we're going to be seen and heard. So the question in a healthy organization is how to give a genuine gift. That in Buddhism we say generosity is the virtue that produces peace. It's the stairway to the higher realms. And the gift you give to the people who you work with is to listen with your heart. That is a gift more precious than any other gift you can give. And there's no handbook for it. You just make the decision to be that lonely, that you would listen from here with no good reason. You're not trying to fix the person. You're not trying to, figure them out. You're actually really there. And that can be done with someone who you like or someone who you don't like. It has nothing to do with making friends, making alliances, or that kind of thing. It's genuine generosity. You listen the way a honeybee listens to a garden. That you find your way into the sound of the birds chirping outside. And what happens is you gradually let yourself care for something that you can't name. This weird elephant thing turns out to be, a house with a bunch of people in it. There's no there, actually. I work for elephant. What's elephant? Elephant is a word. But that honeybee's curiosity actually discovers the ecology of present communication that changes an organization from a dumb hierarchy, a non-hearing hierarchy, into a dynamic, breathing thing, where when that starts to happen, when things go wrong, you can do no look behind the back passes, because you know that person, you have that environmental awareness, and they do too. And therefore, you don't know whether they're going to mess it up or not, but you have trust in the process as a whole, as opposed to, I've got to solve this problem. I'll get those people to do what I need to solve the problem. That kind of problem solving, again, is valid. But without this environmental awareness, there's no oil in the machine. It's like trying to run a structure or a machine without any oil. And that oil is listening. It's really listening. So is everyone game to give this a try? This won't hurt much. It'll last a lot. Yeah, her quizzical look. She have the best quizzical look of anyone. She totally does. I love this. Yeah. So we're going to do an awkwardness exercise that I really love in dyads. This won't hurt much. And really, what we're going to do now is we're going to go in a number of configurations, because we experience this pond in different ways. Right now, you've been listening to me, right? So it's a triangle configuration. So I'm talking, you're listening, I'm looking around, we're having lots of back and forth like this. We can feel the circle, but it's all about me. So that's one way an organization works, right? It's a completely valid way. But if we reduced an organization to this, it would be totally top-down, not happening. Now we're going to go into a dyadic configuration where you're working with one other person, and you're actually feeling who you are and they are, feeling the pond, right? Feeling that space. But now it's localized and there's no hierarchy there. Right? One person is not the leader and the other person isn't the leader. There's a quality of finding out how you fit together. It could resolve into one person tending to be more leader and another more follower, but you don't know. There's this inquiry here. working with another person. So find yourself a partner and face them. Someone you've never worked with before. Oh, that's going to be hard. Go ahead.
Someone you've never worked together, like.
I'm kidding. Everyone's I was joking. But really face each other. Not this, not diagonally, like I'm basically here, but I'm not related to you. We're going to the trouble of really facing each other. Nice. Don't knock over your glasses. Good. All right, so first thing, big breath together. Ready? Now you can have your gaze down around the other person's neck or chest, wherever you're comfortable. And it's a soft gaze. Soft gaze. Now, first feel your feet on the floor and yourself in the chair. Sense of being in your body. Most likely you have lots of thoughts running around, and you should completely let them run around as much as they want. They are the children in the attic, and they get to play all they want. We're not trying to suppress them in any way, but we're coming down into actually being present. And now let yourself feel this other person in the room. You're in a big pond, but you're basically relating to this other person. And as you look at their chin, chest, wherever your eyes fall, and your soft gaze starts to include them all. And just feel who they are, as if you tenderness, I think, is the word, tenderness. And curiosity. Let your inquiry fall from your head into your heart. You can appreciate they've had a whole life to come here. They've gone through a lot of things. This kind of appreciation doesn't pick and choose between the hard stuff and the easy stuff, or the awkward things and the beautiful things. You're literally looking into a thorn bush or a tree, or maybe a bird. And as you raise your gaze, so you gaze very gently at their face. It's not a okay corral, eyeball to eyeball. It's a sense of really feeling who they are. You can smile. Sometimes you feel sad. A lot of things happen. So we're being brave enough to appreciate each other, to really listen. So the person closest to the window, and if you're both equally close to the window, then figure it out. The person closest to the window can share a memory from when you were 12 years old. Doesn't have to be anything special. and stay in heart connection. Now just come back into being present with each other. Sense of the listener being given a gift of being really present when someone's saying, in other words, you're really providing a space where someone can share something. And that's a brave function. And it allows the person to feel seen and valued because it's actually true, not because we're going through an exercise, because you actually are seen and valued by someone who's brave enough to be present. And so you can reach out and touch the back of each other's wrist to each other, like that. Yeah, that's right. I do this a lot like that, yeah, exactly. I do this a lot in exercises because so many people have had trauma issues with being touched. This is a real safe way of doing it. And there's a quality of actually feeling that other person. Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you so much. Let's turn back. So in terms of quality of felt sense, what was it like to be a listener? If you were a listener, who was the listener? He listens?
I tried it.
What was it like?
It's new, exciting. No, it was scary to me.
Yeah.
Rachel and I worked together a lot, so it was, in a way, easier with her because I've been through a lot with her, I feel like, especially recently. So I'm very familiar with her big eyes and how they communicate very directly how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
But it's scary, like you said, it's brave. And it's made me realize at some point that you talk a lot because you are scared to listen and be vulnerable.
So, it's brave to actually feel that, what you just said too. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm scared more than I think. And I'm really adroit in what I do. So it looks like, oh, look at that. There's something I hadn't noticed with you two. Who was the listener? What was it like for you?
I don't know if I felt vulnerable necessarily listening, actually, but I felt like just such warmth and compassion for Lindsay. And as she was talking, I just wanted to touch her and hug her.
Okay, yeah. So that might be a nice energy to have in your organization, is genuine care, love. What was it like in your Diane?
For the listener? Well, it was really interesting because Ashley, it's kind of funny that Ashley was the one who was talking and I was the one who was listening. So that's, I think, a pretty standard dynamic for the two of us. But it was funny. I was like so curious about what she was going to say because I feel like she is so bubbly and talkative and personable, but it's typically on more of like a just like keeping things going
Mhm.
type of conversation, and this was a very like personal story, and I was just so interested in hearing like just about Ashley as a person, and not just about like the day or what we're doing or how she's feeling like in that moment.
Ashley is a person, which is, there's a lot of dignity there. So dignity is a big byproduct of listening. Is that both parties start to feel dignified, even when what you're sharing can be really humiliating, could be, And so that quality of dignity is very hard won in organizations. It comes from listening. So like in your Diana. Listener.
It was good. I actually felt like I wasn't listening enough. It was sort of I felt like I wasn't listening well enough, possibly. So I realized I asked a couple of questions, but then it ended up in a bit of a conversation where I was talking to myself a little bit, but it was kind of, I
So
did
that's
enjoy
really
the listening
good.
element.
The habitual patterns of our usual tennis badminton approach to communication are hard to break. It's hard to listen well. You actually have to have a commitment that I'm actually going to listen, because all of us do that. We badminton back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like that's a bad thing. But this deeper kind of listening requires a wholehearted commitment. It's a learned thing. You don't get it right away because you say, "Well, if I don't say something, it'll be rude." You literally feel like I've got at least nod my head.
But I was also genuinely curious, so I was genuinely asking
I
questions.
think I started out, I couldn't think of anything, and it was kind of general, and her questions were trying to open me up.
That's
A
good.
gentle, listening and open.
So
So I
this,
really appreciated the way she listened.
listening is a collaborative experience, even when one person isn't talking. It's a collaborative experience to find a way to deeper connection. And a lot of it's done in felt sense, and your posture is super important. I can give a talk like this, something along those lines, and I can say exactly the same words, and you say, well, he's in his Barca lounger. He's not actually present, he's just so how you are is really, really important physically. And this will come back to our discussion of natural hierarchy. That when your natural hierarchy physically is lined up, then you resonate more deeply with your environment. When the natural hierarchy of your organization is, you have a good spine, things are lined up, then you resonate with your world on a deeper level, with each other. What was your listening like?
I was listening.
Good.
I think I focused a lot on her facial expressions and
Yes.
everything when she was explaining about the story and everything. It was really nice to see, the joy and how she remembers everything,
Yes.
and how kind of happy and glad you're about it, not just a different side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll kind of get to see just talking about random stuff at work or anything that happened recently. Just
You find when you really open up to someone's physical presentation, it's almost like a magic thing. You can see, you don't know the stories, but you'll know when someone's been hurt, know when someone's, you see in, which is shocking, actually. You explore that. That's
she
wonderful.
kind of took me with her there, in that story when that happened.
She took me with her. Can you say that in Slovakian? Slovenian?
Vzela me je s sabo.
Se me se.
Vzela me je s sabo.
So that's a real big imprint. That's an important principle. Vzela me je s sabo. It's an important principle. She took me with her. That there's this resonant journey that you take that can't be communicated in words. She took me with her in her karmic stream. So there's this deep sense of connection and resonance. What was your listening like?
I kind of had the same experience as Waylon, where I can't tell if I'm trying to fill a silence when you ask the question of think of a moment when you're 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I immediately am thinking of my moment,
Yeah.
ready to share my experience, which is kind of, in a way, I think I work as a human being where I connect to people by connecting
That's right.
their emotions with something that I've experienced.
That's natural.
But at the same time, I kind of feel like I was also doing it to have something to say after she had done her experience.
So, that's a real journey we take is how do we have the confidence to be simple so we can really hear? And what I experience, I do a lot of meditation instruction. I'm sitting across from another person and I've got this whole dialogue going on. Nice shirt, booger in your nose, all that sort of, and I'm used to it now. And I just say, it's like when someone knocks on the door, the dogs bark. Right? That always happens. So when you try and listen, first thing that you notice is the dogs are, and you let the person in, the dogs wag, and then they relax and you can hear them. So the fact that the dogs barking means that the door's open. That's a good sign. But it's not about the dogs, it's about who's coming into the room. So that's really great. So it's very standard that happens. Sometimes you can go right into presence, but a lot of times there's an awful, the dogs are pretty excited. There's a new person at the door. It could be anyone. It could be the postman.
It was totally like Yuli was telling her a story, and I kept on being like, oh yeah, she's telling me a story. I need to focus on the story.
Exactly. Well, that's part of our learning process. And last, who was the listener? What was that like for you?
It was comfortable because I think I'm more quiet and I'm comfortable in that role. I'm happy to just listen and not say anything particularly. So I was doing that and it was nice, and she told a really sweet story. And at one point too, I found myself starting to think about what I would say, and I was like, "Don't stop that." And I just tried to come back and be open to what she was saying. And there was one other thing I was going to say, I forgot. But yeah, I learned from, I've done guided listening exercises hundreds of times over the last
so you're
years.
familiar with the process.
And it's helped me a ton to be more comfortable and just be content to listen and happy to listen and not have to feel obligated to do anything else besides that.
So thank you very much. So in any organization, poison is people not feeling heard. What? Not feeling heard, not feeling seen. That you feel unworthy, you feel unrespected, you feel isolated, you don't know how to identify with the thing as a whole. So the process of really listening, taking time, doesn't take a long time. Once you know, you can do it at any time. You really listen and you are offering a gift to someone you love. And it doesn't have any content. It's like, I'm really listening to you without judging you. I'm really listening to you with my heart and feeling who you are. And that creates a potential in the organization that's native to the organization. In other words, there's already that mutual appreciation, but with that little bit of intentionality, you're creating the basis of natural hierarchy. And what is the basis of natural hierarchy? It's mutual appreciation across strata of authority and function. It's mutual appreciation. And you can talk your mission statement and your culture of elephant and day and night, but without the listening, it's more talk. With the listening, that stuff becomes really useful. We don't throw it out. We don't throw that part of it out the door, as just a bunch of garbage. But without the listening, it's just talk. Does it make sense? Anyone have any? Yeah.
So when you talk about the ripple, how you hear something and how something is communicated, there is an almost immediate, I think, impact on the listener based on the emotion coming toward them. So how can you remain open to listening with your heart without soaking up that emotion too much to be able to respond in a way that's beneficial?
Yeah, that's right. That's called warriorship in our tradition. And it requires a lot of bravery. And what is the bravery? It's not being, when someone acts badly, or is expressing a lot of confusion in a situation that can be sort of poisonous. You get poisoned. Why do you get poisoned when that happens? Let's say someone is really it's not good what's happening. You know, I mean, it's pretty icky. Why do you get poisoned when that happens in the environment? What do you think?
Because you can't help pick up on someone else's energy to some extent.
Good. And what is the basis of that energy that is radiating out?
Just like their humanness, their emotion that we also have.
It is, but also when it's poisonous, a lot of time it's despair about their own goodness and place in the world. And it can come out as anger, it can come out as blackmail, it can come out as all sorts of difficulty. But what really infects us is not just that difficult energy, but the doubt we have in our own basic goodness. And it makes us wonder. So when you think of some of the, I mean, this is something I go through all the time. You think of some of the things that are happening in the world, like the African girls being kidnapped as sex slaves and then killed. And it's just stuff that's crude beyond your wildest dreams. You know, on one hand you say, well, that's far right, it doesn't affect me, but why does it affect me? Because I think if people could do that, you know, are we really based on just selfishness and anger and trying to, you know, that kind of, is that really how we're put together and everything else is a veneer? Or in fact, so that's a big question for us when we start to listen to this. One of the things you do is you can't protect yourself from other people's confusion anymore. You don't get to filter out what you experience in the bond. So that means your personal inquiry about your own worth and your own basic goodness becomes really powerful and pointed. It puts you on the spot. The reason you don't want to listen is because you don't want to hear. And the reason you don't want to hear it is because it's going to raise questions that are really scary for you. So when you give the gift of listening, you're also receiving the challenge of understanding your own heart more deeply. Does it make sense? Ouch. Gosh. You know, so you say, I'm just going to keep my head down and buzz through the day because I don't want to feel this question I have about whether I'm okay and whether this world is okay. And that's a very, very deep question. And you can't have a healthy organization if you run away from that. You don't have to solve it. But if you build an organization around distancing yourself from that on-the-spotness that comes from listening, you can make a beautiful, successful organization in the short term, but it's not going to resonate with the natural world. And it's not going to be able to help people because you have dampened the tuning fork at the center. So you start with each other, one-on-one. And when you take that chance, you notice, you're trying to vote, you start crying. You know, that you are vulnerable to that level of care and feeling other people. And that makes you what? Resonant with the world as a whole. That's what I understand Elephant to be about. This deep, deep curiosity about how can we resonate with all kinds of diverse goodness and courage in the world to actually illuminate the possibility of people living good lives in lots of different ways. But my point here is that in your little pond is going to put you on the spot. How are we doing 10 minutes? Is it? How long do we have? I can
2:45.
Okay, good. So that's why this personal work of hearing each other has global implications in terms of the mission of the organization. Traditionally, in a Chinese organization, the person at the top of the organization, at the very highest, has no other job than resonating with the magic and goodness of the world. That's their only job. Everyone else does the work. In our kind of organizations, that's not a reasonable thing to do, but it is incumbent hierarchically that as you have a hierarchical place in the organization, you take greater responsibility for being vulnerable to the poignancy of the world. Otherwise, your compass doesn't work. The practical compass of how you have a better bottom line or get more articles and anything, it's just practicality. There's lots of business schools. It's doable. We're talking about the other compass that makes an organization an oasis in the world where people can connect into something that excites their own trust and their own genuineness. That's really important. So let's try another exercise now. We've had this me talking to you thing with a little back and forth. We've had one-on-one. Let's have fours. And or three, if let's say 4, 4, 4, 3. We can do that. Or let's see, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. We'll do threes. So in that case, we're going to have a little discussion about what's the topic? What's the topic?
About like irritation. That's what you mentioned right earlier. Being irritated with something. Is that a topic?
It could definitely be a topic. It's an interesting one. So so the topic is, and it won't be that long, so you're just putting a pebble into the pond, see how it feels, how I work with irritation when it comes up. And we'll see what it feels like to not be one-on-one, but now we have this more complicated dynamic of 3 different people relating to each other. So 3 up, please.
Hold on to that topic. Irritation. Irritation. It's all about irritation.
Snarky. Yeah, but it's like a while.
But it's getting like shorter.
Good, but not helpful.
But it's always so painful. So I think it's like I know for a long time that it's like not a good idea. It's way worse than like a non sometimes I do. Sometimes it's okay.
Right, so you are a good
Not pushing too hard, trying to stay in that.
But it does, I do that too.
Edge.
No, that would have to realize that. And that's like no longer. On that again 3 months ago. Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to like dabble in the English language, but now because I figured out I can really like super like
Irritation is not an issue. No, I don't get it.
So I'd be curious to hear from people who haven't spoken yet, who were the speaker at our first exercise, what it was like to be in the triad. Who was someone who was, yes.
So here we are all three together, and we all know each other, and so I spoke first, just to kind of get it out. But then it was over fast, and we all took turns. So I felt like it was pretty balanced.
So one of the issues that we just heard, that first of all, where do I fit in? It's much more complicated than these three. I went first to get it out of that. Because really, when you're speaking to one or the other. It's really hard to have bivocal vision, right? Mm-hmm. And then keeping it balanced, much bigger issue. All of a sudden, there's three people, so you have a naturally unbalanced situation. So how are you going to, you're all of a sudden in a social dynamic that's really different than a dynamic. Much harder to hear, much harder to speak, because you're speaking to two worlds, and you're hearing, as generally speaking, all of the three of us tend to speak to one person, right? It was easier. You could see the person would glance over to the other person, but they're actually magnetized one way or the other, because it's a lot easier to know who you're talking to, and the other person can be an observer. So you've got a three-person group. That's interesting, isn't it? What was it like to be in a three-person group?
Well, I guess this time I was listening, because when I was just Waylon and I was talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed the tendency to kind of think ahead of what I was going to say when Waylon was talking. And then when you were talking, I had a lot of questions for you that I wanted to ask, just because you're the mentor in this situation. So I was, again, not so much thinking about my situation, but kind of wondering about yours. Right. And I found myself coming back like, okay, just listen.
So that's great. You see how dynamic it is? It's like being a trapeze artist, to be in 3 or 4 person groups. It's not possible to just simplify, or it's not as one-on-one, one person's speaking, one person's hearing. So your generosity in your process is much more dynamic. And so that's bringing us out of that simplicity of the simple gift into a little ecology where there's lots of things going on all at once and they can't be simplified. The actual structure of it doesn't allow it to simplify the way if you're just sitting by yourself or with one other person. You think, well, this is really simple. Another person, oh, okay, we got family here. What's going on? What was it like for y'all?
We did this at the beginning. Everybody was like, so who wants to go? And we're all like overly polite. Nobody's jumping in. So we were all sitting back, sort of like waiting for the other person to talk.
So another thing that happens is right away we're trying to figure out our hierarchy.
Ooh.
Who's starting? Who's listening? How do we decide things? Right? So that becomes a natural issue that whenever you're in a group, saying, okay, let's settle this out about who's going to fit into what function and what are those functions. That's something that spontaneously arises. So sensitivity to that becomes very helpful. Otherwise you think, well, what's the hierarchy here? I feel scared. But when there's sort of a group curiosity, like you're saying, okay, we're all feeling like how we're going to take a step forward. And because we're listening to each other, if it's the wrong step, we can refigure that out, which is really healthy. What was it like for someone who hasn't shared yet? Okay.
So I think the first exercise, the dyad, kind of carried over to this one, where the first time
think I spoke because Kat was having a hard time thinking of a memory.
Mhm.
And this time I was like, I'm way more interested in hearing what they have to say than what I have to say. So I kind of like wanted to go last because I wanted to hear them more. And I thought towards the end we were all talking like together in the flow, which was really cool. And it actually shocked me how we all, like in terms of the topic, we all kind of handled being irritated pretty similarly, which reminded me of the fact that humans kind of do have like a prescribed social pattern of how to act when certain things happen.
So it's a little like juggling, you know, when you have three people, that one ball's in the air speaking and the other ball's coming down. You know, you have this sort of natural flow or synergy that can develop in a good working group, where just somehow you figure out, okay, it's your turn, it's my turn, you don't, you know, it happens naturally. And last one, how was it?
I thought it flowed really easily. Really came in saying, you know, I haven't thought about this, and so it was just really easy to get going because something had come together to share. And then it felt like what she said kind of built, and then I felt like what I said kind of built, and so we all were kind of collaborating.
Yeah. So that's what you want in a work group, is collaboration. This is a sense of finding each other's riches, and you know, one person hands you the brick, and the other person got the mortar, and you know, you end up with a wall. You know, you actually have done something together. That's great. So all of this has been an exploration of going from a personal experience of your own path, your own sadness, your own care for the world, your own inspiration, into how it's possible to genuinely listen as a gift, and how important that is in an organization. That it's the hidden thing that no one can actually talk about, but when it's happening, when people take that radical chance of truly listening as a gift, then nobody feels unworthy, because you would never listen to somebody you don't care about. It just can't be done. You cannot do it. So finding time to do that at first seems like artificial and awkward, but you say, you know, just talk to me for a minute or two and I'll listen to you. Why? Because, and then you say the thing you're not supposed to say in your organization: I love you. I care about you as a person. I'm interested in who you are, even though you are the most irritating person in an elephant. The person who drives me nuts and doesn't get her job done. I care about you. I'm not here to solve your problems or feel sorry for you or anything like that. I'm present. And then what happens is that in these next level of work groups, you have a more dynamic process, because you can't listen in that way, but that lubricates the process of finding your local natural hierarchy and learning to work effectively together. And as a whole, when you get together in a big circle, there's a quality of not just one person talking, but the most challenging of all is the big pond, where you're listening to each other and feeling the thing as a whole. When that happens, boy, do you have strength in an organization.
One question, because I'm thinking tomorrow is departure day, I think, and only 4 of us are here. 5, 4.5, basically. 4.75, including Samara. How do we listen how does the natural hierarchy or the pond work when it's mostly virtual?
Yeah, there's 2 parts. First of all, these in-person meetings are really essential.
What's that, sorry?
The in-person meetings are really essential. I know they're expensive and hard, but when you get to do this with someone, it's going to inform a virtual relationship. And a lot of it has to do with courage. And it's the courage not to be distracted. So you can do this on Skype. I do meditation instruction with people in South Africa, Australia.
The courage not to be distracted.
That's right. And you don't have to do it forever. It's like holding your breath in today's world. It's like, don't check something. You're on Skype. Don't be surfing on the side. But it's like holding your breath. like that, it's hard, but
Yeah.
you make a commitment, okay, for 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to actually genuinely listen, and that person on the other end is going to know I'm genuinely listening. It's not as good as doing it in person, but it's about 100 million times better than not doing it.
And it's better than doing it in person when you're half distracted or on the phone.
Precisely, exactly.
I have 2 questions. One, is there like a prompt or something that you recommend if maybe you feel stuck with a person but not sure how to proceed?
Yeah, the prompt is an internal prompt for me. The way I do it is it means, oh, I'm not listening deeply enough. I'm going to start on my end rather than figure out how to fix that.
Mhm.
Because generally speaking, we can't fix each other. You know, if you have a person who is a certain way, in other words, I really have a problem with the way you said. You seem like a nice enough person, but you're all sort of like diagonal. And I'm getting, you know, I get funny messages from that. And so when we're meeting, could you please sit my way rather than your way? Would that be okay with you? Would you have a problem with that? Just know I'll tell you how to sit, and then I'll feel better.
I would probably just say if you told me to sit honestly, but.
So, you know, generally speaking, we're not going to solve other people. We have to feel the pain that they're bringing up in our heart. And a lot of times they're putting their finger in front of wound. It's not really how they are. Not always. Sometimes you have to do practical things. You know, someone like melts down in meetings every time their meeting doesn't work. They probably can't work here. But let it be a reflection to your own heart. It reflects back to your heart rather than objectifying the irritation. Yeah.
I know you had 2 questions. But so how do you not fall into idiot compassion? How is that not a passive thing to give them the respect?
Idiots aren't awake. That's the great thing.
What's that?
Idiots aren't awake. That you're genuinely curious. You're not, see, idiot compassion is a way of getting off the hook of really feeling that person. A person as a leader may not fit in the organization for lots of good reasons. Or they may not be doing their job well. That's this other side which we totally respect, that we haven't been talking about because we've been concentrating on this part, but that's the practical side. As a leader of a work group or whatever, you know, there's a natural that, but when you fire a person, you feel who they are. You absolutely don't wall yourself off from that event, or else, you know, you've done violence at that point. But if a person has to be fired or something has to be adjusted, whatever it is, that's a real part of any organization, right? That's something that happens. But if you're a leader who says, well, I don't want to actually feel who people are because I might have to fire them, heaven help you in terms of creating a resident organization. Because then you say, well, I don't want to feel the people on the street corner because I might have to give them a dime. Or, you know, it is ice 9. Once that kind of walling off from the sadness of the world and the difficulty of being a genuine person happens, it infects everything. As soon as you genuinely listen, then, I mean, I remember telling Keir Craig's mother, you know, no, he's really going to die. It was not a kid who had AIDS. She wouldn't believe he was going to die. And it was like not my happiest moment, right? No, you really can't work here at Elephant. It's not going to work out. But I am saying that from the point of view of who you are. And nonetheless, there it is. That's what we're aspiring to be in the real world. You know, that we deal with these difficulties through hearing, through genuinely hearing and feeling who each other are. And that way, the pond resonates. So let's look at, to finish up, let's look at this calligraphy by Shibata Sensei. These were 4 of his favorite characters: wind, trees or forest, fire, and mountain. So this is the process. In the I Ching, the trigram for wind as well as wood, both of them, is the feminine emergent quality. Feminine, it's very gentle and it penetrates everything. That's listening. So when we listen, we feel heaven, which is wind, the gentlest manifestation of heaven, and we feel earth, which is how things are growing out of the earth. So we're feeling heaven and earth from the point of view of gentleness. Out of that comes fire, which is global awareness. In Buddhism, we call it vipassana or prajna, but it means feeling everything without any bias, no picking and choosing, no friends and enemies, actually feeling the pond completely. And out of that comes genuine hierarchy, which is the mountain, which is a sense of egoless seat, that when you sit in your seat, you're not trying to protect yourself. You have dignity, and you're a reference point for the planes, for the whole organization. You have dignity, and they know, the highest point of our aspiration is the mountain. We can see it from anywhere. And all of the sense of the water comes down the mountain and fertilizes the fields. So each one of us can be a mountain that way, which is unmoving confidence in the basic goodness of people and society and ourselves. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
So, Fla, leadership. Yen, administration, you might say. And Lu, the fundamental wealth of the situation in the world. Awake and give. Okay then.
Thank you.
So I think do we have time left, Lindsay?
Yeah, we were just,
2:47.